Good morning, American truckers. We're going to talk about the 4 most common lies that brokers tell. I've got some good friends that are brokers. I did the owner-operator thing for a little while. I worked with a pretty crooked guy out of Oklahoma, so it didn't work out for me. But I learned a little bit along the way, and I've learned a lot from brokers that I know personally. Eventually on this channel, I plan on doing an interview with one. He's been a broker now, I want to say 7 or 8 years now. He's been a broker for quite a while. He was once a driver. He went to the other side. Actually, I think it's pretty smart. You know, brokers are the first ones with their hands in the money, so obviously it's a better position. Not only that, but if he only makes $100 a load, you know, he's moving gobs of them. So, and he has hardly any responsibility. So he's got it pretty much made on that end. But and he never gets out of his pajamas. He's sitting in front of his computer at home, telephone and a computer, and make money. You know, he didn't go to college. He didn't go get a degree or anything like that. Doesn't require any of that. You hear all of that kind of rumor in the industry. Excuse me. Doesn't require any of that. If you want to be a broker, you can literally go apply and get the job. It's just like trucking. They got like on-the-job training or whatever you want to call it. TQL's one of them. There's a few of them that will. Integrity's another one. They hire straight off the street. You know, you don't have to have any kind of special anything in order to be a broker. Or, excuse me, an agent for a broker. You know, and that's what he does, and he makes a real good living doing it. You know, $15,000-$20,000 a month is not a problem for him. But he's moving a ton of loads where we move one load. You know, so we're getting paid on one load. He's getting paid on multiple. At any given time, he may have 8 or 9 loads on the road getting moved at any given time. So naturally, he's on the better end of the deal. But we're going to get into some lies that brokers tell to get drivers to take the load. Give you a little bit of maybe some ideas to kind of get around it. Try to figure it out. And I hope this helps y'all out. Number 1. And these are not in any particular order. They tell all these lies equally. Probably all in the same phone call. But anyway, here's number 1. That's all I have in it. You call the broker. The pay on the load seems light. You tell him, hey man, can you come up another $300 or whatever? He tells you, no, that's all I got in it. Well, there's a couple ways you can get around that a little bit, but it's going to take some work on your part. You can get on truckstop.com. You can get on DAT. And you can look up at what the going rate is for loads from where you're at or where you're picking up at to where the load's delivering at. For example, you could look up Los Angeles to Chicago. It'll give you what the average rate per load is right now. It'll also tell you what it was 1 year ago. You know, so you should be somewhere near that number if you're hauling out of there. If you're below that number, you're killing yourself. If you're above that number, you're doing pretty good. You should be somewhere around that number. That's something you need to know before you even call, you even go look for a load. You know, you want to say, well, because generally you try to stay in good areas. So let's say you're in Los Angeles and the freight's good. You know the freight's good in Denver, which it normally never is, but let's say you know the freight's good in Denver. So, you know you want to go that direction. Get on there and look and put together a game plan. Okay, loads from Los Angeles to Denver are paying $3,000 for dry freight. That's what I want. I want to be around the $3,000 mark. I'm not taking any less than 28. You know, that way you know what you're looking for before you ever call a broker. If you know what you're looking for before you ever call them, it's harder for them to talk you into BS. You know what I'm saying? All right. Another lie they tell that kind of goes along with the first one is I've been running these loads for that price. Well, if they have, then they should have a dedicated carrier, right? Wouldn't be on a load board, correct? Think about it. But still that comes along kind of the same thing as number one. Worst case scenario, you tell them, look, I'll call you if I don't find nothing, and hang up. Rejecting loads actually helps the price in the area, and I'll get to that here in a minute. Another lie they tell, number three, is my shipper or receiver is quick loading and unloading. Man, I can't tell you, I hear that even from companies. As a company driver, I hear that BS. And I can tell you that really there's only a couple ways to get around it. One is through networking. So talking to other drivers, keeping track of loads you've hauled before, keeping a list of the ones that were really long loads and unloads. Over time, you'll narrow it down. You don't want to haul that freight anymore, unless it's going to pay you for what it's going to take to get it unloaded or loaded. And another way is to get on Google. Google the shipper, Google the receiver. Try to get that information from them beforehand. Some of them will give it to you, some of them will not. If they will, Google the information. Because a lot of drivers, when they get stuck in a dock, I know I myself do it. I get on Google and I put that information in there. Even as a company driver, I do that. The reason being is, if an owner-operator gets a load going there, I want him to be warned. Hey, I unloaded here on this date and it took me 6 hours. That way that owner-operator can pull it up and he can see where I made a comment. I left a review on that shipper or receiver. You can see that in Google. You Google the receiver's name, you go to reviews. A lot of times you'll find drivers who have left comments in there. There's also apps for that. I don't know how. I had an app for a while where you could leave a review on drivers. It was like I was the only one doing it. There wasn't that many people on the app, so I got off of it. Anyway, that's about the only way I can think of that. Unless you lie to them back and say, no, I've hauled that load before, and that shipper takes 4 hours. You're going to have more money in there than that. But that's between y'all. Weight of the load. They almost always lie about the weight of the load. Oh, it's light. 10,000 pounds. You get there and it's 38,000 pounds. They're just trying to get you to get the load. They're trying to get their load covered. It's kind of hard to get around that one. I mean, you can try to ask them what the commodity is and use a little common sense. If it's meat, let's say you're hauling refrigerated and it's meat, I doubt it's going to be 10,000 pounds. Be pretty rare. Produce, it could be. So I mean, it's kind of hard to get around that. The only way I can think to get around that is networking. But the main thing is you use these brokers, and if you get one that lies to you, once he lies to you once, don't use him twice. Don't ever use him again. Because I guarantee you, if you mess him over, he's gonna write a freight report on you, and he's never gonna use you again. So don't use him again. You'll put him out of business like that. One of the main things that raises or lowers the price of freight is a truck to load ratio. How many trucks there are in an area to how many loads there are in an area. When there's an abundance of loads and not as many trucks in an area, the price of freight goes up because they start battling with each other to get that freight covered. Rejecting loads, or rejection ratio percentage. Like at this present time, loads crossing the border have a 25% rejection rate, which is causing those prices to go up. As they're trying to get them hauled, they keep going up on the price because so many loads are getting rejected. That's why I was telling you earlier, don't be afraid to reject a load. If you reject a load, that helps the price. Rejected tenders help the price. Not hauling cheap freight helps the price. I know some drivers will jump on there and say, well, if I don't haul it, somebody else will. Let that other guy lose money. It ain't got to be you. You're trying to maximize your money. For as little work as possible, you're trying to maximize your money. And that's one of the ways of doing it. Main thing is, if you've been doing it for a while, you should have it down to a few brokers you're using anyway. A lot of people don't realize this, and I don't know why in the industry today people don't get this, but load boards were never meant for you to live off of. Load boards are meant for backhauls. In other words, you got a dedicated customer that you run direct freight with. There's no law out there that says a load has to be brokered, because it doesn't. A driver can legitimately get a load directly from a shipper to haul. And it's something you should be working towards. I wouldn't backdoor a broker on it, but you sit down and make calls and figure something out and get a route going. But the load boards were meant for, let's say you're in Dallas. You got a shipper in Dallas you direct ship with. Every Monday, you haul a load from there to Chicago. But you don't have a direct customer in Chicago. You get on the load board and get your load back to Dallas every Wednesday. That's what you do. That's what the load board was meant for. That's what it was truly meant for, right there. So, living off of it can be risky, real risky. You're going to have times of the year when you win, you're going to have times of the year when you lose. When you direct ship, you normally lock in on a contract rate, so you get that rate throughout the year, regardless of what the freight price is doing. Because certain times of the year, freight volume drops. Well, now you end up with more trucks, less loads, and as that closes in, the market flips. It's more in the favor of the broker. You're going to be running loads for less money, because if you don't cover it, somebody else will at that point. So those are the lies that brokers tell. Those are some of the ways to get around it. You may have some other ideas or something you've come up with that I hadn't thought of. If you have, throw it down in the comments. Let some of these other owner-operators out there know. We're all brothers and sisters, man. We're all taking care of each other out there. I hope this helps. Y'all keep between the lines. Stay safe.